Hello, this is Chipicon, and this is welcome to Otherworldly, which is the show for Changing Times, Changing Worlds conference coming up in November, which we hope you will come to. It's virtual again this year, Monday through Friday in the evenings, and all day Saturday and Sunday, so that people from all over the world can come. And Changing Times, Changing Worlds and Otherworldly are dedicated to providing a platform where we can talk, discuss, and learn more about, get better at things like energy healing, divination, ghosts, spirits, otherworldly beings. We want to make it practical. We want to do more that, well, we can't do as much hands-on, except, you know,
distance work.
It's a little harder than than when we were meeting in
I can't
public.
do a Runewalder workshop over the computer. I found that doesn't really work.
And but we can still meet once a week and talk about it, and we can stop pretending it's not real. That really makes this old woman very cranky when people say there's no such thing as ghosts. Yeah, some people say there's no such thing as true love, but I had it. So there you go.
Yeah.
And tonight we're going to be talking with Feather Stych about communicating with animals. And this is something that I think we need to, there's technique involved, there's talent involved. Some people can, some people can't. Some people have a facility for learning foreign languages. Some people don't. Some people I speak with infants, children, babies, and I will speak to them just as I would speak to any other person. And their mothers say, they don't talk yet. And I said, you've got to listen. And I can usually get coherent thoughts out of them. So I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to, but on the other hand, we have to remember some of them are going to be brighter and some of them are going to be as dumb as a post. But let's go over to Feather Stych, who will tell us a lot more about it than I know.
Hi. Well, I am Feather Stych. This is the name I'm going by now for magical things. It was originally my first name on the internet ever. So I'm kind of returning to my roots, including my roots in magic. I never grew up believing I could talk to animals necessarily, but I never grew up believing I couldn't either. I loved Dr. Dolittle, for instance, as who doesn't? The idea that you could talk to the animals and find out what's wrong with them and help them out with it. It's just awesome. Now, I figure animals have probably been something that people have probably tried talking to animals ever since like time began and people were encountering them. It's just another being, right? And I'm going to start by saying a disclaimer first, actually. I'm going to explain how I do it. I'm a self-taught animal communicator. I have relatively little experience, probably compared to some people in this room and some people and certainly to lots of other people in the world. And I haven't done, let's see, what else was I going to say? How I can tell you how it works for me. And beyond that, it might work differently for you. It might work the same way. I don't know. It's a very hard skill to prove. Somebody asks you to talk with their animal and find out something, and how do they know you actually made contact? You have to find confirming information or something. Anyway, I always grew up in a house with cats and eventually a dog that we had for many years. And I just played with them. They were companions in the household. It never occurred to me to talk to them. I always got along well with them, though, so maybe there was something to that. After many years, I met this guy on the internet and married him. He's down there somewhere under the name Griffin Brook. And some years into our marriage, we decided to get pet rats because he was working all day. I was home alone and I wanted some companions. So I'm going to start up a small set of pictures here. This is Star and Sable. Star's on the bottom of the pile. They were, I think, probably about 2 months old when we got them.
Something like that.
Yes, thank you, Bill. And our first experience with rats, we made our own cage out of hardware cloth. And the wooden ladders are some bird ladders. We got our training wheels with these girls. And they were easy to entice out of the cage when, let's see, I have to do this to get to another picture.
They are precious.
I would have yogurt in the morning for breakfast. I would dip my fingers in the yogurt and let them lick it. And that was how they got used to us. There's another picture I have somewhere of one of them licking yogurt off my finger. She's just so adorable. But they got very comfortable with us. As time went on, they got older. And this was 2007 in January was when we got them. And a year and a half later, that should actually read, no. Okay, 2006 was when we got them. 2007 was a year later. Later that year, the Star and Sable were starting to get older. And I think Star, we probably let her go too long. Star was having some seizures and possibly some strokes, and we didn't take care of it sooner. But we were getting to that point where you're going to keep rats or you're not going to keep rats anymore. And we decided to introduce a young girl. We stopped by a pet store in South Nashua, and they had their adoptions out for the weekend, and there was only one rat.
Who is your name?
Well, we walked up to this one tank where this one rat was. She was 5 months old. She had actually belonged to an employee of the store and was brought in. And we took the lid off, and she started jumping out of the tank onto my shirt, and then back down, then back up, and then down and up. And the associate was with us, said, she's not done that with anybody else at all. So, well, it took me about 2 seconds to decide, well, she's coming home with us. They had a cheap cage we could get to take her home in, and she climbed up to the second floor of the cage, which was sitting in the back seat, and laid down in the corner closest to the passenger seat where I was as she could, and slept all the way home. Except for the moment when I was thinking about what am I going to name her? And she said, Lola. So I think she was talking to me as early as that. So this is Lola. She's a gray Dumbo. She's about 5 months old at this point in time. And we introduced her to the cage. Now, Star and Sable passed on. And we had to find, Lola was sitting very alone and unhappy up in the corner of the cage. And she would just sit there looking at me until I took her out, and she would cuddle in my arms. This was January 2008. And within a week, we got in touch with a rat rescue in the area. And this is Ivan on the left Ivan on the right and Leo on the left. They're a pair of neutered boys. And you can see me using the yogurt trick with them there. Lola wasn't entirely happy with this. She would push them into the corner. She would dump a fabric nesting bowl on top of them. She would cover them with tissues. And you can see her pushing them in the corner here. But they gave in. They decided, okay, yes, you're the boss. And here she is sleeping on top of them in a felt treat bag from Target and singing to the whole world about how she's waking up in the morning. And this is my favorite picture of her. About August of 2008, in the summer of 2009, we lost Lola. She was 2 years and 3 months old. And she actually sought out comfort on her last day. Did as she often does, asking to be taken out. We had other rats by that time. We were fostering some rats. We were just had others of our own. She came to ask for comfort, and I let her out of the cage and nestled her in my arms, and she passed away in my arms very late that night. If not for that, we might have taken her to a vet, but it was peaceful. It was probably just heart failure, respiratory failure. And I was heartbroken. Lola had been what they call a heart rat. A rat that is very close to your soul. So again, in the concept of what do you do when a rat dies, I was thinking, well, we've got all the fosters and they're in one cage. We've got our rats in another cage. Do we get another rat? And someone told me to call Mainly Rat Rescue and talk to them about it. This was the very next day after Lola had passed. And I talked to them at Mainly Rat Rescue, and it turned out that they had just the day before brought in a very sick gray Dumbo female who was pregnant. And I just knew that this was basically Lola had told me. So I chatted with Lola about it. I had accepted this already. I chatted with Lola about it, and she was going to keep an eye on, and I'm sorry to say, I actually forget the rat's name. We've had so many over the years. I think it started with a B. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, she had her baby. I think the baby passed. It was a stillborn baby. I don't know. And we adopted her. And this was because Lola had talked to me about it. So those are the pictures that go with the talk. I was on the group, I was on the website Ravelry at the time. And they still had some forums for general talk. And there was one sub forum that was for the spiritual, the occult, the mystical. Somebody brought up a topic of animal communication there. And after following it for a bit to see if people were being sane about it or going nuts with it, I decided to chime in and say, I do this. I've been talking to my pet rat Lola since she passed away. And after discussing it back and forth a bit, some people started asking me to do readings for their pets. What the heck? I did. And I don't think I ever had anyone tell me I was absolutely wrong about anything. There was a cat who showed me pictures, and they communicate all different ways. There was a cat who showed me images of the white fake fur square pillow that she had for a bed, and how she loved when her owner was cooking, when mom was cooking and cutting up chicken, and she would get little bits of raw chicken. That was her favorite thing. And the owner said, well, yeah, I gave her that square pillow. She sleeps on it all the time. And then there were the 2 dogs in Finland that the owner just asked me to see what I could find out about them. And apparently their favorite thing was to get up in the windows on their hind legs, get up to the windows in the front of the house by the road and watch the cars go by. And I think I may actually need to call up my drive document to look at it, because I made a lot of notes because I knew I would get nervous.
Well, I'm going to chime in here for a moment, because as you talk about the readings you've done, of course, me being an old used engineer and how we like to see things grounded in evidence, there was a point after one particular reading where I realized I had seen Jen
Okay,
do
I know the one you're talking about. You like to
these
bring it up.
cold readings and getting them right every time, far more than could be explained by coincidence or anything else. And I realized at that point, I was suddenly convinced, okay, she has demonstrated with real evidence a real talent. And I thought that was significant, that she was able to prove to me that she could do it.
Well, I was, we had several things happen where Bill became too disabled to help take care of the rats. We had to give up all the rats to the rat rescue. It was very rough for us for a bit because of Bill's disabilities, and we moved back to my parents' home state. And this was about the time that I was doing all these readings on Ravelry. I got asked to speak on a podcast out of Michigan somewhere. Karen Hager is the psychic who has the podcast. And so I was interviewed and people called in. I would do readings. That was actually kind of tough, but I did it. There was one dog there that was really interesting. They had been found as a stray, and I was able to identify that he had been through some really rough times, found in a rough urban area of the Los Angeles area, and may have been shot at least once. And so let's see, we came to Syracuse. I was participating in a psychic fair after we moved here. And there was one woman who, it was a sad story. She had lost a cat. The cat was lost. They couldn't find her. And they gave up. After a couple of years, they found her dead in a box in the attic. No idea how she'd gotten there, and she was terribly upset by this, of course. I was able to get in touch with the cat. So I do talk to animals on both sides, here and there. And I was able to, if the cat was very matter of fact about it, she knew it was a sad thing for her owner. But she said, look, that there was nothing you could have done. This just happened. And I totally forgive you. And it's all right. I was sad not to be with you anymore, but please don't beat yourself up about it. And it was such a relief for her. And then there was the time that somebody wanted me to find a lost cat, and I had never been asked this before. And I reached out in my head, and well, the cat was dead in a back of a garage somewhere. And I basically just told her, no, I don't do that thing. And I will not take any requests for finding a lost animal again, I don't think. Yeah. Otherwise, some of the interesting work that Lola and I have done is when a friend says that they have to put their animal down, or their animal passed away and they're still so upset about it. Lola and I have participated together in helping animals to pass when they are dying or put to sleep. Lola will go to be with the animal. I will be connected to her. Lola will bring other animals that she knows that have passed, and they'll all be there to comfort the animal and to walk her through to the other side. And this isn't one of those very idiosyncratic things. The other side to me appears like the platform at a train station. And there's a wall. And Lola's usually sitting about here. The train would be over that way. And if she's brought any animals there to be the greeter with her, they'll be sitting around her. And when I see the animal pass over, they're walking in from behind me into the field of view and onto the platform. This has happened numerous times. I think it's some of the best work that Lola and I do is helping animals to pass and helping comfort the owners when they do. Now, I didn't do much to train myself. I have had psychic communications with friends before, and it's just like you think of them and reach out in your head. And again, this is how it works for me. You think of them and reach out in your head, and you know if the words you hear back are them because you just know them. And so maybe I only have, Jane Smith has asked me to get in touch with her cat to go on. But Jane Smith imbued that contact with some sense of the cat. And I can pick that up and I can look for the cat. And I hear back from the cat. And animals answer in all sorts of different ways. Some of them can only handle images. And so you'll see the pillow. You'll see the cat being handed a bit of chicken. Some of them, there was a rat in particular that I talked with that had given me a good sense of smell of the bacon they like to eat and the poop in their cage. There was a cat that was, I believe, a Burmese or some such, and she spoke very proper English. She had a definite upscale attitude to her. And she would tell me about the other cats and how they were silly and played too much, tried to play too much with her. And there are cats that are, well, younger ones especially, but some cats that are very active their whole lives, they sometimes they hardly have time to talk to you. They're running around and they'll say this and that and the other thing, and they will hardly answer your actual questions, but they'll tell you all kinds of things about what they're doing and what mom's doing and what they like to do and what, why are you talking to me now anyway? And you get all kinds of responses. You get the older dogs that are sounding tired and just ready to go, and they know that their owner's going to be sad, but this is how it works. And there's not a real lot else to say. I have thought about doing this as a paid gig. The psychic fair I did was a charity one, but it's also something I haven't been doing a lot for a long time. Mostly because as I've become more disabled myself, I've been more isolated at home. And the Ravelry forum was taken down when general discussion became too fractious and angry overall. There were different types of word wars going on every place there, and they just destroyed the whole forum and never replaced it with anything suitable for me to continue doing the work there. I have tried talking to the animals I have in the house, Toaster and Callie. It's Toaster you see in the picture with me at the event announcement. But you know what? I think I've decided I could never get any response from them. And I think I've realized that they kind of look at me strange when I try that, because they talk to me directly and I understand them. So what am I doing this thing for? So,
Feather, are you
Yes.
looking at the chat at all? I like
not at the moment. I'm
Robin-
sorry.
Robin mentioned that when cats came in, the first thing they do is make a beeline to the food dish in the kitchen.
Well,
Well,
makes
there's that.
sense to me. That makes sense to me when I think about all of the spirits, like Thor, who like, or Ganesh, who like their sweets or like their alcohol or whatever. It's like,
mhm.
Yeah.
why would our ancestors, why would our pet ancestors not like a food offering?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm talking it with Toaster and Callie in person in a level that goes even beyond that, as the simple need for food. I know when Toaster's asking for a treat. I know when she's asking to curl up beside me. I know when she's asking to have her butt wiped. I know when she wants to move over to the other side of me in the bed.
Mhm.
Callie, I know when Callie wants to play with a certain type of toy. I know when she wants a treat. I know when they want me to go to bed. They know that 9 o'clock is time.
Yeah, and I don't have that quite that level of communication, although I have gotten a lot closer to both cats over the last year or so, especially to Toaster. And I'm starting to distinguish the different meows and yowls and all of that. And sometimes it's just feed me, damn it.
Yeah. But I think
And
a
sometimes-
combination of body language and the sounds they make that are different for everything.
Yes.
I figured out how to understand what they want. So
Mhm.
there's no need for this psychic nonsense, you know?
And I can see why they would find it a little weird. I was thinking there are a couple of little highlights from some of your work that I remember distinctly. We talked about how cats convey
Mhm.
their communication in images. And the one that really stands
Some
out
of
in
them do, yeah.
well, hello, Toaster. You hear us talking about you. Jen did a reading for this one cat for the owner the cat seemed to be, they had moved to a new house and the cat seemed to be dissatisfied about reality. And Jen came up with, I miss my friend. So who is the friend?
Okay, I remember this one vaguely.
And
It's been many years for some of this.
well, and different things stick to both of us differently. So after a certain amount of fishing around, she finally concluded that the old house had wall-to-wall carpeting
Yes,
and the
that was
new
right.
house had hardwood floors.
And she wanted her
Cat
friend to lay down
is-
on.
And I miss my friend. So sometimes and I realized that, boy, that's a slippery interpretation to have to make in order to get the right answer. But
Well, English is not their first language.
no, I don't know what their first language, it could be Welsh or Martian, but
Meow isn't even their first language. Meow they do for us.
well, that's true. They meow at their mothers and they meow at their owners, and they don't meow at themselves. Although they do make these high-pitched little squeaks like, oh, you're a friendly cat. I know you.
Yeah.
And
But yes,
when
this
I think
cat was
about these things is that,
missing the rug that had been everywhere.
right. And I think about that when I think about how she has contacted animals and had to make this language leap.
Mm.
And she also talked about how the other side looks to her when Lola's waiting for somebody. And it wasn't until recently we found out she and I have totally different visions of it, because I've been in contact with Lola once or twice. And to me, what I see is the Rainbow Bridge with Lola at the bottom and some variable number of animals waiting there.
That's what's
And-
outside
and-
this train station.
I guess.
There's a
And-
receiving area before they take down the animals out where they might freak out about the
Okay,
Rainbow
that's
Bridge.
all right. We want to be logical about this. That works.
I'm
And I
thinking
do know
that it's just that filter that once
Yeah.
we have left the shared reality we've created to interact that we call Earth,
Right.
that we call reality, that when we reach the side that has spirit, and yet we are still in these bodies and brains,
Right.
we take images from our experiences in this lifetime, because I do believe in multiple lifetimes, that we have and that we use to understand when we're dealing with the realities, when we are communicating spirit to spirit, and we have to create a ability to communicate, we're going to create a filter that allows us to understand what the other one is thinking, and we will
And-
choose pictures that make sense.
Yeah. And for
within-
me, I think that's the concept of meeting someone at the train station, meeting someone at the airport,
Right. And for
meeting
me,
someone on a platform when they get off the train.
I have a stronger connection to Bridge because, Jen, I don't know if you remember this back in New Hampshire where we did a little bit of witchy work. I was involved in, I don't know what you would call it, but apparently there was a trapped spirit that couldn't pass. And we're not talking about it
I
now.
stayed
We're
at the
talking-
shop while you did that. Yes.
All right. And what we found out is we had this old woman who had died waiting for her husband and son to come home, not realizing they died in a stagecoach accident. And I was working with 2 or 3 other people, all of whom were much better at this than I was.
Mhm.
And the one thing it turned out I could do better than either of them was when it was time to build the bridge to the light. I had no problem making this bright white interstate highway that led straight to the light. So I tend to think of bridges that way.
Okay.
And so I think that reflects when and I do find it kind of interesting that we both see Lola, or we both see the passing animal come in on our left.
No, my right.
You know, you're right. Oh, my
Mhm.
left. It's always been the left. So anyway, that adds a little texture and flavor to all of Jen's experiences. And
Hmm.
I think it makes it all terribly interesting.
And it just goes to show too that anybody can do this.
Well, that's true. I
Bill's
mean,
never
the fact,
thought of himself, Griffin's never thought of himself much as a psychic communicator in any way.
and yet I've done this more than once and as far back as Heart Song.
Yeah. So I suggest if you want to try this, maybe not try with the animals in your own home.
Hmm.
Because like Toaster and Callie, they may be thinking, you can only talk to me. What the hell? You know?
You know, why are you calling?
Why are
Why are you texting
out of
me
my
when
head.
you could talk to me?
But communicate with a dog you meet at the park with their owner's permission. Communicate with a friend's dog who's at their house, or a cat that you see in the window across the street, maybe, and see what happens. Think about them in your head. Look across. Get, even if you don't know what they look like or what their name is, you might be able to get a response and hear back from them. Starwolf, I saw your hand up. You're muted.
That wasn't a hand up, that was a thumbs up.
Oh, it was a thumbs up. Sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, and he also caught a reference that was in the back of my mind when I stated about my experience, and I was thinking of the word pontifex. which literally
Priest and
means
bridge
bridge builder.
That's
But
a
it's also the
And-
chief priest of Rome back in the old days.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, that's still a meaning. But I realize that if you take the concept of bridge builder, oh, you
Mhm.
can go so many places with that, both in the human daily realm. But talking about what Jen said about trying to contact an animal, I would start, if it was me, I would try to find an animal just like Jen did with Lola that was so dear to her. There was this incentive and this motivation.
I didn't even initiate the contact, Bill.
Well, maybe Lola loved you more than you loved her, but
There's so
I
much.
still, she was, I have another picture of her somewhere in my file folders. And
shirt.
just her looking up at us,
Uh-huh.
and you just look at that face, and
Yeah.
everything is there.
Mhm.
So I would say if you want to try
She was a very
communicating,
smart rat, very loving, knew who mom was, and wanted to spend time with mom.
yeah, and I guess to that degree, over the last couple of years, maybe more than that, is I have opened up a lot in other ways,
Mhm.
becoming more responsive, not just to my spiritual side, but to my emotional side.
That's
Would you
good,
agree
yeah.
on? And so areas of me that have been dormant for a long time are opening up. And
Mhm.
you never know what's going to crawl under the door when you do that.
I used to try and talk to the animals at the zoo too. And we have a world-class small zoo here in Syracuse, and
Oh, yeah.
I laugh at that because while it is true that I don't think there is a very many types of animal that haven't tried to take a bite out of Willow.
mm,
When she speaks, they pay attention, and that she will go to the zoo and tell the giraffe, "Excuse me, you're not in frame. Please put your head down," and they will.
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah, and
well, I
so
don't.
there are just people who I think have a more clear channel to the we have connections, we have etheric connections, energy connections between us and other people and other animals, and
Mhm.
if you don't even consider them a possibility, you're not going to build them. But if you
Well,
are
that's it.
ready to talk, if you're ready to
You-
speak to another an animal as if it will respond, then it is more likely that it will respond to you.
Yeah,
Yes.
first
I think
you have
it may
to
be
know
easier.
that
Yeah.
the channel is there,
Mhm.
and then you say, "Oh."
And I have to say that even though I knew I could talk with pets, it never really occurred to me to talk to the animals at the zoo. Partly because I was always with other people, like the
Mhm.
downstairs neighbor's kids or something like that. And I didn't want to take up their time with my thing. And partly because it just didn't occur to me. I was usually there to take pictures or something. And I never thought to ask them, you mind if I take a picture of you or anything like that? And for some reason, and this is probably my comeuppance, they always turned their ass to me. I have the
Except for
greatest
that
collection
otter.
of butt shop. Well, that otter
remember
was
that
underwater and swimming.
And I
so-
think somehow you conveyed something there, because didn't he get into at least into the finals for the picture taken by people at the zoo?
No, I
Or-
don't believe I made the finals ever.
Well,
Okay, well, I know you submitted it, and I know it got accepted for judging,
Yeah,
But-
but I didn't make the finals out of that.
and I seem to remember at one point you looked over and stared at an elephant, and it turned around and looked right back at you.
I was getting more disabled at that time, and I may not have had my brains together because I remember sitting
Mm.
there because I was in a lot of pain. Actually,
I'd like to talk to
Yes. Questions.
and maybe get some feedback from some of the other people here. But I remember being told, one of our friends had spoken to a little lady on the London Tube who told her intensely that in heaven there are kitties and there are budgies, and but the only dogs that are in heaven are the little ones. And basically, as this woman continued, she realized that she believed that heaven will contain only the animals she likes. And I think that,
Hmm?
but
Her part, maybe.
Yeah.
there was
Well,
another,
and heaven only contains the people you like. So,
I have the
That-
sense that if there is a heaven, and I'm not sure there is, but if there is, it's everyone's perception is going to be of a different place altogether.
oh yes.
yeah.
The supernatural
another-
theory of heaven, actually, everyone had their own room up there in
Another
heaven.
story I wanted to throw into this conversation, if there was room at the end, and there seems to be,
Yes.
is there was a naturalist who had gone up to Greenland, and I think it was Greenland. It could have been Lapland. I'm not sure, which is Finland maybe. Anyway, he had been dropped off. Now we'll come back and pick you up in a month. Here's your pile of supplies. And as he oriented himself, he saw lots of animals, and that's what he'd come to count and look at. And gradually he started to realize that he was not in the place he thought he was supposed to be.
Huh.
All he saw was animals, and he was speaking to them. And then there was one shaman type spirit who came to him and said, there aren't as many spirits here as there should be, because the hunters are not doing the right rituals when they take an animal's life, and they can't come here to rest and recuperate before they go back and take on another body and go through the cycle again. And he asked him very nicely, could you please tell the tribes to continue to do the rituals when they're doing their hunting, so that it'll send the animal spirits to the resting place. Now, let's face it, the mystery of what's beyond. And then he, at the end of his month or whatever, he got picked up and he came back, and he wasn't sure in the book that he wrote, or the article that I read it in, that he should actually mention this, because it might make him look like he'd gone loopy. But he figured he'd share it for what it was worth. Or maybe he just shared it in in a very small directed population. Put the animal stuff over here, then we'll put this part for the people who are ready to hear it.
I think if I believe anything, the Rainbow Bridge comes closest, but I don't think that from the place where you meet up with your animals, you necessarily go over a bridge to anywhere else. Maybe you find your own home somewhere with your animals. But
perhaps the locals, the natives of that area, had been talking to the animals for so long and interacting them for so long that the animals were willing to go along with it and absorb their idea of the afterlife. Who knows? I certainly believe animals have spirits, and I believe that those spirits can come and go. I don't believe for a minute that we can only go from human to human, or that animals, or that there's something really special about humans that makes us superior. And after you've lived through many incarnations as an animal, then you get to be a human. No, I think we each live in whatever we take whichever life is necessary for us.
right.
I think after a really hectic life, you might want to be a pet cat for a while. or rat, if that's, especially if there's somebody you want to be with.
Right.
But I would require that somebody had some
Robin has
experience
a cat.
being told that they're by their pet, that they had been their brother in a previous lifetime and decided to come and hang with them. I think that we have to, you have to look at it both ways at once.
Mhm.
This may be symbolic, this may be a filtered perception, or this may be our only way to learn about it. So we have to apply
Well,
all of that when we're examining that which we
The-
cannot confirm with meter sticks and scales.
Right. And I think the reality that exists on the other side, whatever the other side is, assuming there are even sides,
Mhm.
is I kind of like Lily Tomlin's summation. Reality is a collective hunch.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I suddenly realized that my perception of what I see with the animals at the bridge is probably as much shaped by the animals as it is by me.
Mhm.
And I suddenly have to respect that and realize that if I actually do, and whether it's animals or, if I were to be able to somehow visit my father as an ancestor, what reality would that be? I have to think about that. And I do realize that it's a shared reality. The animals share it with us while we're all alive, and then they have their memories and perceptions of it when they pass. And Lord knows what the bridge is going to look like when I show up.
I was wondering if
Um,
anybody else had experiences with talking with animals here.
Robin, did you have something? Unmute yourself if you had something that you wanted to share.
Sure, I'll go
Or
back
not.
to about,
Robin's busy being trampled by a cat.
Yes.
yeah, I picked up my third one. One of my friends moved out of state and wanted me to take her kitten last week. And the kitten is just realizing what Zoom is, and people talking. She's never seen that before. I'll go
I
back
got-
about
Oh, hello.
20 years ago. I had a Savannah that I got for a friend
Mm.
who went into kidney failure and was, oh, fine, leave. And who was on the way out. And he liked to curl up underneath this one table. I walked past him one day and there was a black cat, a tortoiseshell cat, and a white cat sitting around him in a circle just watching him and talking to him and waiting for him.
Mm.
Ooh.
So those are the three that came to get him ready to take him when he finally went.
Oh, that was lovely.
Well,
Oh
that's
my
nice.
God.
The fact they had 3 companions to
Yeah,
take him over. Awesome.
and they just sat there with him for like days at a time, just looking at him,
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
around in a circle, just looking at him.
We're
Well,
just here for you. Hmm.
time doesn't matter much on that side.
Yeah.
That. And then what I have now is actually I got something that's really amusing. I have a 16-year-old deaf cat who got dementia like 2 or 3 years ago. I
Oh,
took
dear.
in a neighbor's cat the neighbor had died. I took in her diabetic cat, and cats that are deaf, they have a hard time communicating because they don't know how to modulate their voices. Sounds make no sense to them. And I was surprised because my deaf cat came and somehow I was able to get a link with him. And he says, I don't like this new cat. And I said, why? He said, because he's being mean to me. You need to make him
Oh.
stop being mean to me. And I said, well, his mama died. And he said, died? And I said, yeah, that's the same thing that happened to Binky when you sat with her when she had the cancer. That's what dying is. He said, his mama died? I said, yeah. He says, okay, we'll keep him here for a while longer and see if he stops being so mean.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. It's
But
suddenly
he
having
really relaxed
that's-
when I explained to him what happened. And he was like, okay, I
yeah,
guess I'm
realizing
not
the
so
other
scared
cat
now.
had been
Okay.
through this really, really tough time. And no wonder he's a grouch.
Doesn't sound like his problems are that significantly different than our problems.
Right.
Well, the more we talk about this, we realize
Getting
that they
bullied at
aren't any
school,
damn
Mom.
different. We just
Yeah.
have different
Yeah.
doctors.
Very sweet.
Yeah.
Any,
Has anyone talked with living cats about the trauma of when they're displaced from or dogs or cats or whatever, when humans just confidently grab an animal and take it someplace else? It's
Mm.
like, it's that would seem traumatic to me, but I don't know if anybody has spoken to a cat.
Yeah, actually, when I got my black cat, his owner died, and he had no idea where she went. And when my white cat Wiggy got really sick and had to go to the vet for 3 or 4 days and disappeared again, Blackie automatically thought that he disappeared too, that he was gone too. And Blackie, the new cat, got so stressed out over the white cat disappearing, he had a flashback to when his mama disappeared that he stopped eating. For 3 days, he did not eat till Wiggy came back, but he was so traumatized about another one disappearing on him. So it really did a number on him.
Yeah. Feather, we
Yes.
know that Toaster went through some trauma before we adopted her. Have
She's
you
never really
ever-
talked about it.
Okay, it's one of those things that no one talks.
We know enough of the story anyway because we talked with the owner extensively. Toaster was a 6-week-old, was a 7-year-old Japanese bobtail when we adopted her. She had been with her owner since the owner was 16 and she was just a kitten. And the owner moved into her boyfriend's apartment where he had 2 Bengal cats, boys, who promptly started to beat Toaster up regularly at the age of 7. And I've never heard about this from Toaster. I don't try to make her talk about anything like that either. But Toaster was finally confined to 1 bedroom and recovering from a wound that was big enough in her backside to have stitches in it. It was about yay long. And we went and met Toaster, who apparently had been given a lot of catnip before we arrived, so she would, in the hopes that she would be nice, but she snarled at me. And I said, well, we'll take her. And a week later, I noticed that the owner had posted on Facebook about how suddenly she was engaged. So it was one of these disposals of convenience, but Toaster had had enough of that place. She slept on my bed the very first night that we brought her home that day and has slept there every night since. But no, she never told me about it, and I never asked her because I knew the story. So, anyone have any questions about how it might work or what kind of things I've learned? I don't. Being drunk, possibly. She has less of a desire for catnip than Callie does, and Callie becomes extraordinarily playful and adoring when she has catnip, and she wants lots of it. Toaster will enjoy it, but I think it usually relaxes her more. Maybe she doesn't want to be bothered when she's relaxed. Usually Callie gets the lion's share of the catnip.
I'm going to, did I say? Yeah, I'm just checking if I'm muted.
Yeah.
I thought that I would mention the, that we had a Changing Times, Changing Worlds show back before it was called Otherworldly, but on the June 16th in 1921, and I have found it giving you a link during a over. It's no good, but if you go to the Changing Times, Changing Worlds channel on YouTube, we have one on from Sydney Eileen on, and it is called Sydney Eileen Ghost Cats, which might be something. We were calling it Otherworldly at the time. So,
Yeah.
but you'd be able to find it by looking for Sydney Eileen
Okay,
Ghost Cats,
that would be interesting to look at.
which is more that
oh.
people here tonight might be interested in seeing.
And I am curious what happened to you in 1921 that was worth mentioning there.
You did say 1921.
Oh, sorry, 2021. Old woman.
Not that old, Chipicon, please.
No, I know, but I just, to me, all year numbers should be prefaced by 19.
Yes.
I'm still stuck there.
Well, it's like
Okay.
the ad where the guy looks over and says, "Oh, I don't need to see your card. I can see the one at the beginning of it."
Yeah.
In a bar.
Okay, anyway, so that's that.
So thank you everybody for listening. And if you want to get in touch with me about anything, with any questions or anything, by all means.
Yeah.
Let's
And if
see.
you want to, I put it in the I put the link in the chat. So if you want it written down, you don't think you can find it, just hit the three buttons, the three dots, and save the chat, and then you can look it up there.
Okay.
But thank you all for coming. Please do tell friends, because let's face it, you can't really go around the water cooler in most offices and talk about your dead animals and what they've talked to you. We can't talk about healings you've experienced, ghosts you've met. Oh, sure, you can talk about your labor forever.
I had a chat with my
And
neighbors
there are things that we
last
can
night. You should have heard what they had to say.
Yeah. But thank you for coming, and tell your friends about Otherworldly, and tell them about Changing Times, Changing Worlds, and get those suggestions in for what panels, what things you'd like to see. Join us on Facebook, and tell us what you'd like to have covered, because that's what we're here for. Thank you, Jen, Feather Stych, for
Thank you.
for doing this, because not everyone has the same talents, and I can't do this. What you do is not something I can do. I do other things, but that's not one of the things I can do. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for being gentle for my first time doing this sort of thing.
Well, this is a good way if you're not sure you'd like to be a speaker to
Well,
dip
yeah.
your toes